For centuries, it was the ultimate dream, humanity's destiny among the stars. Now, that dream is hurtling towards reality. Companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, and even entire nations are pouring unfathomable wealth and ingenuity into making us a multi-planetary species. Is this the bold next chapter for civilization, or a dangerous distraction from the problems on Earth? We're diving into the trillion-dollar race to colonize space, and how it could fundamentally change the future of every single one of us. This isn't your grandparents' space race. Today's battle for the stars is fueled by private ambition and unprecedented technological leaps. The new cosmic arena has some serious heavyweights. First up, you have the visionaries, the billionaires, who grew up reading science fiction and are now trying to write it into reality. Elon Musk with SpaceX is laser-focused on Mars, driven by the belief that making life multiplanetary is essential for the long-term survival of human consciousness. He sees it as a backup drive for civilization. Then there's Jeff Bezos and Blue Origin with a slightly different vision. He imagines a future where millions of people live and work in space, not necessarily on a planet's surface, but in massive orbital colonies, moving heavy industry off Earth to preserve our home planet. But it's not just about private fortunes. National pride and strategic advantage are massive drivers. NASA, the legendary agency that put men on the moon, is back in the game with its Artemis program. Their goal is to establish a permanent human presence on the moon, seeing it as a crucial stepping stone, a training ground, and a refueling station for eventual missions to Mars and beyond. They're collaborating with international partners and commercial companies, creating a new ecosystem for space exploration. And you absolutely cannot count out the rising powers, especially China's national space program. They have been making incredible strides, from landing rovers on Mars to building their own space station, the Tiangong. Their ambitions are clear. They want to become a leading space power by 2045, with lunar bases and resource extraction firmly in their sights. The motivations are a complex mix, securing humanity's future, tapping into untold resources on the moon and asteroids, establishing geopolitical dominance, and of course, the pure, unadulterated spirit of exploration. Building a sustainable colony beyond Earth is arguably humanity's greatest engineering challenge. It's one thing to visit, it's another to stay. So, how do we actually do it? The first massive breakthrough is reusable rockets. This is the innovation that truly changed the game. Companies like SpaceX have turned what was once a multi-million-dollar piece of disposable hardware into a reusable vehicle. Imagine throwing away an entire airplane after one flight that was the old model of rocketry. By landing and relaunching their boosters, they've drastically cut the cost of getting mass into orbit, making the very idea of a colony economically feasible. Once we get there, we face the next hurdle: survival in a hostile environment. You can't just pack everything you need for the rest of your life. This is where a concept called in situ resource utilization, or ISRU, comes in. It's a fancy term for living off the land. On the moon, this means mining ice trapped in permanently shadowed craters at the poles. That ice can be melted for drinking water, split into hydrogen and oxygen for breathable air, and combined to create rocket fuel for the return trip or for venturing deeper into the solar system. On Mars, the thin atmosphere is over 95% carbon dioxide. Devices like the MOXIE experiment on the Perseverance rover have already proven they can convert that CO2 into pure, breathable oxygen. These technologies are the key to unlocking self-sufficiency. Then there's the problem of shelter. We need habitats that can protect us from extreme temperatures that swing by hundreds of degrees and, more importantly, from deadly cosmic radiation. Without Earth's magnetic field and thick atmosphere, colonists would be bombarded. So engineers are designing habitats that can be buried under several meters of lunar or Martian soil, using the planet itself as a natural shield. Inside these habitats, we'll need closed-loop life support systems, miniature, self-contained ecosystems that recycle every drop of water, every molecule of air, and every bit of waste. Think of the International Space Station's life support, but on a much larger, more permanent scale. But for every brilliant solution, there's a terrifying reality we must confront. Radiation is a silent killer, increasing cancer risk and damaging our DNA over the long term. Mars is infamous for its planet-engulfing dust storms, which can last for weeks and block out the sunlight needed for solar panels. The low gravity on the Moon and Mars, while fun for a little while, will wreak havoc on the human body over time, causing bone density loss and muscle atrophy. And we can't ignore the psychological toll. Living in a small, confined space, millions of miles from everything you've ever known, with a handful of the same people, day in and day out, the risk of isolation, depression, and interpersonal conflict is immense. Colonizing space isn't just an engineering problem. It's a human problem. We have to solve not just how to breathe on another world, but how to stay sane there too. So, who pays for humanity's cosmic expansion? And more importantly, who benefits? The numbers are astronomical. A single mission to Mars is estimated to cost hundreds of billions of dollars, and building a self-sustaining colony could run into the trillions. Initially, governments and billionaire investors are fronting the bill, but the long-term plan relies on space becoming profitable. What's the business plan? First, there's resource extraction. Asteroids are packed with precious metals like platinum and gold, and the Moon is rich in helium-3, a potential fuel for future clean fusion reactors on Earth. The idea is that mining these resources and bringing them back could create a multi-trillion-dollar industry. Then there's space tourism. Companies like Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin are already selling tickets for short suborbital flights. The next step is orbital hotels, and eventually vacation packages to a moon base. It sounds like science fiction, but the market for ultra-wealthy adventurers is very real. Beyond that, the very technologies developed for space have immense value back on Earth, from advanced medical monitoring and water purification systems to new materials and AI. But this economic gold rush raises profound ethical dilemmas. The most pressing question is often called the down-to-earth argument. Is it morally justifiable to spend trillions of dollars trying to build a city on Mars when we face urgent crises like climate change, poverty, and disease right here on Earth? Supporters argue that the investment isn't a zero-sum game, that the technological breakthroughs and the new economic activity will ultimately benefit everyone. They point out that the global budget for space is still a tiny fraction of what we spend on other things, like military budgets. Another huge ethical minefield is ownership. Who owns the Moon? Who gets to mine an asteroid? The 1967 Outer Space Treaty says that space is the province of all mankind, and that celestial bodies are not subject to national appropriation. But the treaty is old and vague, written long before private companies had the ability to launch their own rockets. As we get closer to establishing off-world outposts, we need to create new legal frameworks. How will we govern these new celestial societies? Will they be extensions of Earth-based nations, independent city-states, or something entirely new? What happens if a colony on Mars declares independence? These aren't just abstract philosophical questions anymore. They are practical problems that lawyers and policymakers are beginning to grapple with right now. The decisions we make in the next few decades will set precedents for centuries to come. Ultimately, the drive to colonize space is about more than just science, economics, or engineering. It's about a grand vision for our species. What does a multi-planetary humanity truly look like? In the near term, we'll see small scientific outposts on the Moon and perhaps Mars, much like the research stations in Antarctica, today inhabited by highly trained astronauts and scientists on rotating tours of duty. But the long-term vision is far more audacious. It's a future with sprawling, self-sustaining cities under biodomes on Mars, bustling industrial and scientific bases on the Moon, and maybe even giant, rotating space habitats, like the O'Neill cylinders from classic sci-fi, housing thousands of people in artificial gravity. How would this expansion change us? Culturally, we might see the emergence of new Martian or lunar identities, with their own art, music, and traditions shaped by their unique environments. Think of the distinct cultures that developed on isolated islands here on Earth, but on a planetary scale. Politically, the framework for governing these off-world territories could lead to new forms of human organization, perhaps more collaborative or more authoritarian, depending on the immense pressures of survival. Even our biology might change over generations of living in lower gravity. But the most profound change might be in our perspective. For all of human history, we have been a single-planet species. All of our triumphs, our tragedies, our wars, and our loves have played out on this one stage. Spreading out into the solar system would fundamentally change that. It would be a form of insurance, a guarantee that a single catastrophic event, whether it's an asteroid impact, a runaway pandemic, or a self-inflicted disaster, could not wipe out humanity entirely. From a philosophical standpoint, it fulfills a deep-seated exploratory urge that has driven us since we first walked out of Africa. It's a statement of optimism, a belief in progress, and a bet on the long-term potential of the human spirit. The vision is one where our future is not tied to a single fragile planet, but is as vast and limitless as the cosmos itself. The journey to colonize space is fraught with peril and promise. Do you believe humanity's future is among the stars? Or should we focus our efforts entirely on Earth? Share your boldest predictions and questions in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to Zeitgeist Zenith for more deep dives into the spirit of our times.